Hi everyone, before moving on to the main video, let me cover some really important points because these type of points will get missed. Point number one is that this video is not a personal attack on Adani Group or Adani Ji, all that stuff. I'm a basic retail investor and I'm giving out information for retail investors. Point number two, a very important point here is that there is a lot of panic that is going on that Adani stocks are going to go to zero. There's some fundamental issue going. Now see, this might or might not happen, but the fundamentals you should know. So basically for a stock to fall to and get absolutely demolished, what needs to happen is that the positions need to get cut in the cash market. So cash market means that you're taking delivery and then selling the stocks. So someone needs to own such high volumes of Adani stocks and they need to sell it after looking at all the panic that is going on. So now the Hindenburg report that has come out, so Hindenburg is shorting the stock. This is something that I have explained extensively on the main video, so please watch it, you will understand what that means. But to cut the long story short, what is basically happening is that for a stock to fall significantly, someone needs to cut position in the cash market. Right now, the allegations are that that Adani Ji and his allies are controlling most of the Adani stocks. So who is going to sell? That's the key question. So a couple of points come here that maybe banks could sell because a lot of pledge promoter holding is with the bank. But if banks do it, then they themselves are shooting themselves in the foot, right? Because then there will be an entire collapse of Adani Group. Banks will collapse, bunch of other stocks will collapse, there will be mayhem in the economy. So it is highly unlikely that they will sell it. Promoters and their allies are highly unlikely that they will sell it. So this entire float issue, again, this is something that I have explained on the main video, you will understand it. So this float issue is designed in such a way that it feels unlikely that Adani stocks are going to fall quite aggressively. Third and final point is that does that mean that hey, this is a great buying opportunity in Adani stocks? Now in case you don't want to invest in such dangerous stocks, you can consider checking top 100 stocks small case. This is a wonderful small case that comprises of Nifty 50 and Nifty Next 50. So if you are a beginner and you don't want to take too much risk with your money, this is a good small case to consider. I am linking it in the description box. You can go and check it out. Now over to the main video. Hindenburg is a company that has levied a bunch of allegations against the Adani Group. They have called them stock manipulators, they have increased the valuation, created a bunch of shell companies, whatnot. These allegations are very serious, and if the issue spirals out and if these allegations are true, it can create massive pain for Indian stock investors, including me. So I am deeply worried about this topic. On this video, I am going to take you through some important points that have been discussed on this entire report with proof. So I'm going to analyze that proof for you and would ask you to be rational throughout this video. And also, if you like this type of content, please like and support it because there is a very high chance that this video is going to be taken down. You can prevent it if you simply share it on social media. If you like this video, if you comment on it, hopefully it will gain some traction and will make people more aware as to what is the reality of the stock market. So let's kickstart our discussion and you will learn a lot of complicated finance, corporate governance, corporate management related issues. So please watch this carefully and make notes. So let's go point by point, and there are 7 critical points that you need to understand. First critical point is that what exactly does Hindenburg do? What have they said? And what is the motive behind all this? So Hindenburg is a research, investment and whistleblower organization, so to say, all rolled into one. So what they basically do is that they do something called as short selling. So short selling in very easy to understand term means that let's say the stock price today of a particular stock is 100 rupees. And you know for a sure that this stock price is going to fall to 60 rupees. So what exactly is it that you should be doing? So you should be selling it now at 100 rupees, and when the stock price falls to 60 rupees, you should buy it. So that way you are making a profit of 40 rupees. Now you say that, I don't get this option of doing it on Zerodha. How is this done? So this is done in FNO of futures and options market. So you don't need to worry about the semantics, how to do FNO, will I be able to understand this concept, all this. Nothing like this. What you simply need to understand is that Hindenburg is very good in terms of short selling stocks. They pick up candidates where they feel that there are vulnerabilities. They analyze those companies, they do a lot of investigation, release reports, do some kind of whistleblowing, and they end up shorting those stocks and making crazy amount of money. So in this context, on 23rd Jan 2023, Hindenburg came out with a report titled Adani Group, how the world's third richest man is pulling the largest con in corporate history. And they have released a very dense report with references to a lot of articles, lot of primary, secondary investigation, and the resources and research seems legitimate. Obvious question of a lot of people would be that, this is politically motivated, this company is incorrect, they are against Adani ji, they are against India. See, I'm not here to comment on that, but couple of important points that you need to understand. That this company has done it to a lot of listed companies in the past, including something like Twitter, and have successfully short sold their stocks. This is point number one that you must understand. Point number two is that there is no fire without smoke. Now there are thousands of listed companies not only in India but also the US. Now why would this company handpick only Adani? So there are counter arguments to both these things. But let me very quickly show you as to what this firm has done in the past. Are they only going after Adani ji? So from the year 2020 onwards, this company has shorted 30 stocks including Tesla. And this company has had a very good track record in terms of shorting stocks, making money, and along the way doing all this whistleblowing that it is currently doing with Adani. So there are two ways to look at this story. Number one is that Hindenburg is like a corrupt company and it is doing some kind of foul play and it is against India's growth, this, that, right? So I will not comment there. You make up your own mind. My job is not to sway you one way or the other. The second key way of looking at this story is that maybe Hindenburg goes after companies or malicious companies where it finds some kind of incriminating or credible evidence. So that is how you can interpret the entire story. So therefore we should have a viewpoint that chalo, we are going to analyze the facts independently. So let's start doing that in context of this report that has been published against Adanis. But before that, let me very quickly show you the company's overall record. So they have shorted a bunch of other different companies and generally they have been fairly successful. So this is not a hit and run type of a company, kisi pe bhi aarop laga denge and then we'll run away. No, they are making good money shorting companies and ultimately the market also believes in that narrative. So this is a very important point that you need to keep in mind. A classic case in point is of Nikola. So this was a listed company that Hindenburg ultimately shorted and it created ruckus in the entire market. And from $34 billion market cap, the market cap of Nikola fell to $1.3 billion after that whistleblowing incident. And I'm very, very worried that something similar might happen in Adani ji's case also. So now let's start going through specific points. There are 6 more points that I'm going to discuss. So point number 2 that you need to remember is that most of Adani ji's wealth has been built in the last 3 years. Yes, that is correct. And to what extent? Almost 85% of his wealth has been built in the last 3 years. Now ask yourself another very important question, that what is the source for this wealth? You will say कि no यार उन्होंने कंपनियां बना दी, infrastructure में चले गए, बहुत ज़्यादा bridges बन गए, this that. Okay, so let me ask you another question. It was after 2020 that Gautam Adani ji's wealth has extrapolated or has grown massively. Now just think about it, that there is recession, markets have not been doing well, so many negative things have happened. The market has stayed sideways, but I fail to understand the reason why. When all the companies are falling, Adani stocks are rising and Adani ji's personal wealth is growing. Well, there is a stock market related answer to it, and that has been revealed in the report. And what Hindenburg is basically saying is that see, $120 billion of wealth has been created, with over 100 billion coming in the last 3 years, largely through meteoric appreciation of stock price. Now, how does this exactly play out? That stock price increase adds to Adani ji's wealth. Okay, so very quick summary there. So here is how the math works. So let's assume that Adani ji owns 75% of Adani Enterprises, and in 2020, hypothetically speaking, Adani Enterprises stock price is 100 rupees. Now it somehow happens that the stock price goes to 300 rupees. So it has 3x. So how much do you think Adani ji's wealth has increased? Well, the short answer is that it has gone up by 3x as well. Why? Because the stock price of Adani Enterprise went up by 3x. So this is how increase in stock price impacts someone's wealth. Now comes the second point, that how exactly has the stock price went up and why has it went up and what has been the winning recipe there? Well, the short answer there is that this has been a debt fueled growth. Debt simply means that how much money you are borrowing and reinvesting in your business, and due to some effect, it is reflecting into your stock price. So that is what can be called as debt fueled growth, so to say. And we all know, and this can be checked, the books are in public and you can go and figure out how much debt Adani ji have. So just to give you an estimate of financial health, this is a very important ratio which is called as the current ratio. So the formula of current ratio is current assets over current liabilities. Now, if the current ratio is 1, what does that mean? It means that some company has assets. Assets are things which are positive. What are liabilities? And liabilities are कि ये obligations है हमारी. So if the current ratio is 1, it indicates that some person or some company will be easily able to manage its liabilities because it has equal number of assets. Now, if this ratio goes below 1, then it can create a lot of problem for a company. Why? Because let's say in Adani Green's case, the current ratio is 0.5. What does this mean? It means that the assets are half that of liabilities. That liabilities are 2x, but assets are x, which is a slight problem because it indicates that in the short term, the company runs the risk of not meeting its obligations. Now, the worrying factor is that out of 7 listed Adani companies, 5 are facing this problem as of now. So this is a debt-fueled business which is looking at short-term liability problems. So this is a critical point. Another related point is that in a lot of Adani Group's company, the promoters are pledging their stocks. Now, what is the meaning of pledging? Pledging means that, for example, you have a house. You mortgage that house for a loan from a bank. You go to HDFC Bank and say, yeah, मेरा घर ले लो and give me some money in return. I'm mortgaging it. जब मेरे पास पैसा जाएगा, I'm going to return it. So that is precisely what happens in pledged promoter holding also, that sometimes promoters go and pledge their stocks. Here are my stocks. It is a super high crazy value. Give us some loans in return. So under 99.99% cases, this pledge promoter holding is not a healthy sign for a company. It just indicates that there is a lot of debt that the company has taken. Now, on top of this, they are releasing an FPO, follow-on public offer. What is the meaning of that? How does that happen? Is that a good thing, bad thing? I have done an entire video on this topic. Please go and watch it. It was very well appreciated. I will link it in the comment box and go and check it out. You will understand more how financing happens. And in case you want to learn more about stock markets, finance, do consider joining my course. We have built an excellent community. The feedback has been excellent. We teach the course from a 360-degree perspective. I talk about macroeconomics, I talk about technicals, fundamentals, and you will be able to analyze what type of stocks to pick versus not. All this is communicated in very simple, easy to understand language, and a community is built around it. So you can go and chat with other students and ask me questions. So the link is in the description box. Do go and check it out. We will do a community live event very soon. Now comes the third point that Hindenburg has highlighted. And basically what they are saying is that the company management or a lot of company management is involved in shady practices from their past. For example, take a look at this article. You will see that Rajesh Adani, who is currently the managing director of Adani Enterprises, he was jailed in a fraud case. So this is never a good sign. He was involved in tax evasion. He was arrested twice. Now you'll say that yeah, case chal raha hoga, ya koi personal vendetta hoga. See, I'm not like a legal expert. I will leave it up to you. You guys can go use Google and form your own opinions on said individuals. Then comes the second case, and this is for Mr. Sameer Vora, who is related to Mr. Adani, and he was also involved in a diamond trading scam. So again, all this reference data has been given. Again, you can use Google and try to investigate the answer here. So on top of this, several other members of the Adani family are involved into all of this stuff. Now, this is not a healthy sign, and this is where I will leave the conversation. So I will not get into the name dropping of everything that has been said on the report. I will link the report also. You can go and read it, but to cut the long story short, that yes, this is definitely not a healthy corporate practice, that if your family is extensively involved in everyday decision making, only your family is involved in it, independent auditors are not there. So all this points to bad stuff. So now comes the next finance oriented point, that the float of the company is very less. Now, what is the meaning of float and why is this such an important issue, especially given Adani's context? Let me take a couple of minutes to explain you this complicated finance topic. Now, the concept of float can be understood in the following way. So for example, if you go on Screener and read the shareholding pattern for any company, you will get this entire list. For example, here, if you press on Adani Enterprises and look at promoter holding, you will see that Adani ji has roughly 73% of holding in his company. So this is what promoter holding is. Now think about it this way, that the promoter owns 73% of the company. Rest 27% hypothetically is assumed by external parties. For example, public might be owning it, some FIIs, DIIs might be owning it. Now, how does the stock price move? Well, the stock price is a game of supply and demand. For example, if the demand of the stock is very high, but no one is willing to supply or sell their stocks, then what do you think will happen to the stock? Well, the demand curve will shift rightwards and the stock price will go up. Now again, back to this concept of float, what happens here is that this 73% of promoter holding is completely under the promoter. If he or she does not want to sell, what does the float become? It becomes 27%. That is what the float is. कि इन stocks में trading होगी, mostly इसमें नहीं होगी if the promoter does not want, because the promoter might not want to sell a stock at all. कुछ भी price मिल जाए मैं तो नहीं बेचूंगा. Then due to external factors, if the demand of the stock is going up but the supply is very limited, then the price of a stock can be skyrocketed. So Hindenburg Report alleges that Adani is manipulating the entire stock holding pattern. Plus, they are creating a series of shell companies that are buying Adani stocks, and they have maintained a very, very small proportion of the float. And using that entire gimmick, they have been able to pump up the stock. So how does that mechanism play out? Let me just quickly show it to you by presenting some relevant data. So if you take a look at Adani Group shareholding pattern, you will see that whether you take a look at Adani Transmission, Adani Enterprises, Adani Power, Adani Total Gas, it is very close to 75%. Now this 75% is a very important figure because as per SEBI mandate, you need to have 25% or more in public shareholding. So public or non-promoters need to have 25% or more holding of a particular listed company, and the promoters need to decrease it. This is specifically to manage that float issue. So there are certain mandates. I'm not getting into the details of it, but this 75% is a very important threshold, and Adani Ji's companies are very close to that. But in Adani's enterprise case, there is something very interesting that is happening. Now, according to Business Standard article, a bunch of Mauritius, Cayman Island companies have been created, and they have ties to Adani. And now you'll say that, okay, what will they do by creating companies in Cayman Island, Mauritius, all this stuff? Okay, well, they can buy a lot of stocks. So back to the float concept. So if you consider that promoters hold 75% of a company, now shell companies which have been created in Mauritius, all these different fancy locations, they own like 15% of the company. They are indirectly controlled by the promoter. Then what is the actual float that is left? So that would be 75 plus 15, 90 minus 100. So only 10% float might be left. So I'm just putting this as a hypothetical number just to help you understand the concept. But I hope you get the point that by creating a bunch of shell companies and making them invest or buy your stocks and taking control of it, this entire float amount can be brought down. And the report goes into the nitty-gritties of it, and they have named the firm that is doing that. So there is a company called as Monte Rosa Investment Holding. It controls 5 other companies. For example, they control APMS, Cresta, LTS, Albula, Lotus, whatever. And all these companies have poured in this much money. These are in billion dollars, right? This is not like small amount. And their only investment is in Adani Group, or majority of their investment is in Adani Group companies only. This looks very, very shady that this singular entity, if it is making, let's say $100 billion worth of investments, almost this percentage is going to Adani Stocks. It has been also said that when it comes to this particular holding company, Monte Rosa chairman and CEO served as director in 3 companies alongside a fugitive diamond merchant who allegedly stole $1 billion before fleeing. Vinod Adani's daughter married the fugitive diamond merchant. So there has been a link that has been established between that Mauritius-based group that is buying a lot of Adani stocks and Adani Group. So as a result, what ends up happening is that the float amount becomes really, really small. It becomes like maybe less than 10%. And now what happens that, and as per this economic model that I was explaining you, that if the demand can be pumped up, that you know what, Adani ji is going to be the next big thing, supply is controlled, no one is willing to sell it, what will happen to all the Adani stock price? That it will skyrocket. And that is precisely what has happened with Adani stocks, and that is precisely what has created a lot of wealth for Adanis. So to cut the long story short, the stock pumping takes place by doing something called as round tripping. That Adani Groups, there are a bunch of listed companies, they create a bunch of shell companies, Adani office invests in these companies, and these companies end up purchasing Adani Group stock. As a result, there is very little float that is maintained. Majority of the stock is a de facto, that means as a matter of fact is controlled by the promoters and their allies. So this brings us to the next point, that all this round tripping is happening. Why are authorities not doing something about it? Does SEBI does not know? I cannot say all that stuff. But in order to get all these documents, you need like good auditors, you need like good compliance, you need like good management, which is looking into the transparency aspect of it. But here is the problem, that a lot of associates of Adani's companies are also very shady, so to say. Now, what do I mean by that? And the report goes into the details that, for example, there was a brokerage firm called as Monarch Net Worth Capital. Now, this company was handpicked to book run the Adani Green Energy share. Book running simply means that getting stocks in the listed market or doing FPO of that or doing some kind of financing for those stocks. So that is what book running means. These are parties that are underwriting the stocks and helping the party. Now, this company itself has been mired with a lot of problems. For example, if you simply Google Monarch Net Worth Capital SEBI, you will see that then orders have been released by SEBI to look into Monarch Net Worth Capital. So all this shady stuff is happening. Now you'll say that, okay, this is an external party. Why does it matter? Now then comes allegation number 2 that Adanis are working with Ketan Parekh in order to pump up their stock. So for people who do not know who Ketan Parekh is, so Ketan Parekh pumped a lot of stocks in the Indian stock market a few years back, and he was banned from trading in the stock market. Then he went to London and continued to operate in a clandestine manner. In fact, Sucheta Dalal, she tweeted, and this was in context of Ketan Parekh and Adani. You can go and read this tweet and draw your own inferences. Then comes that, okay, theek hai, ye to external party see. What about internal issue? Any internal issue with Adani ji? Well, it has been alleged that their auditors are not clean. For example, the independent auditors of Adani Enterprise and Adani Total Gas is a tiny firm called as Shah Dandaria and Co. And these are the people who are freshly minted CAs. They ended up auditing these companies. Now, I am not leveling any personal allegation. I am just literally picking up photos and data that has been established on the report itself. Now, it looks very, very shady that some inexperienced people would go and start auditing these high-powered companies that have billions of dollars of valuation in the stock market. Also, the size of the company is very small. Now, again, I'll have to check the details, but it was a 4-5% company, hardly any full-time employees, all that stuff. So it does not reflect well on such a big conglomerate hiring such small auditors to do independent audits on the company. So then comes the final point that, okay, what can we draw from all this inferences, data that has been presented on the report? I have only touched the surface. If you want to read the entire report, please go and feel free to read it. I have encapsulated the major points. But in summary, these are a few key things that I will say. Point number 1 is that Adani stocks are hyperinflated, no doubt about that. Even before this report was released, almost everyone can unanimously say that Adani stocks are overinflated. This is the first key point. Second key point that you should know is that Indian mutual fund houses have generally avoided Adani stocks. Barring something like LIC, which has poured in a lot of money in Adani's, God knows why, there are very few large institutional investors in India that have poured money into Adani stocks. So mutual funds have been relatively safe and smart from that particular angle. Point number 3 is that Hindenburg has levied its allegation. Adani ji will give some kind of counter arguments. Now there will be commenters on this YouTube video. You will say that, you know what, you're against this and that and you are taking sides. No, I'm not doing that. I'm simply explaining you common sense that there is no fire without smoke. यहाँ पे कुछ तो गड़बड़ होगा. Therefore, a company like Hindenburg has generated so much proof against Adani. Now, the good thing in the Hindenburg report is that they have created a series of 85-88 questions that they want Adanis to answer. If Adanis can give a very good response, all these things get quashed and that's the end of the discussion. Everyone go their merry way. But if Adanis choose not to answer those 88 questions, it becomes like a slight issue. So we'll have to wait and watch and look at their response. Now comes the final point that if you are an investor in the stock market, what does the future look like if Adani G's default on their debt? Again, please go and check my video. I will link it in the description and comment box. But the future does not look good. If there is a massive collapse of Adani, it will take a lot of companies with it. It will create a massive distrust. And these type of things takes years to recover. So we are looking at a very bad localized scenario. And I personally will lose a lot of money despite having no exposure to Adani stocks because I have invested a lot in banks. But that money is going to get hit at least for a few years. So there is nothing that I can do on this. I really hope that there is no fundamental issue. All these things is a lie. I will be the happiest person if nothing shady comes out of Adani groups, because that way my money will also be safe in the stock market. If it blows up, then it will be a bad scenario and we are at least looking for 2 more years of pain. Thank you so much for watching. Do share your comments and views and I will see you the next time.